Well, here we go. She's all finished, so time for one last update. I've done a little bit of extra weathering since my last photo update I posted, but by and large, it's pretty much unchanged from that. Just a little more detail here and there. So off we go. Well, she's all finished up, all weathered, all decals are applied. As I posted in my one of my photo updates, I had some difficulty with the decals. I was a little worried that they were not going to go down very well, or that they might simply have been too old. But as it turns out, they seem to have come out pretty well. I had a little bit of trouble with a couple of them. This one here on the nacelle pylon, actually, I had to cobble together from two different decals. The NCC portion got tangled and was basically unsalvageable, so I had to trim it from a spare. Since the ship has markings for 3 different runabouts, I had plenty of extras left, so it was no big deal. As for weathering, I did a wash initially with a heavily thinned, sort of a mid to dark gray, smearing back with toward the back of the ship with a Kleenex to leave streaks in the direction of travel. Say if it were traveling through an atmosphere, it would leave smudging and smearing and just general dirty deposits, etc. across the entire hull. Other weathering was done with Tamiya Weathering Master sets, pastels, and finally with a flat clear coat. What I like to do is use Tester's Model Master flat clear acrylic for my final coat, and I lay it on pretty thick. And then often what I'll do after that is I'll add a little bit of color to it. In this case, I added initially a little bit of a red brown to create kind of some just dirty streaks here and there, and then I added some dark gray and then some flat black just to create kind of these scorch marks here and there that you can see across the entire hull. By mixing them with a bit of flat black, it creates a much more subtle effect, I find, than or rather than mixing it using a clear rather than just a straight opaque paint. It makes a much more subtle effect than you might otherwise have achieved. I did a little bit of other detail paint here and there. The ship has a few phaser emplacements here and there. There's 2 on each nacelle. You can see one right there. There's a couple on either side of the cockpit, and 2 at the very aft of the ship. Those were painted with kind of a mixed brownish tan kind of color, sort of a reddish tan. But I think it looks pretty good. You can still make out the interior through the cockpit windows. Unfortunately, the flat clear frosted the outside windows a little bit too much, so it's kind of difficult to see inside, but overall, that's really the effect I was going for. I didn't want to be able to see inside all that much, just to get an impression of what's in there, but not to be able to see it very specifically. Just to have more of a silhouette created by a bit of backlighting from the LEDs.